From Channel 4, the local station, this is an update from the Weather Authority.
Today's rain just the start. An inch of rain is expected through the weekend. I'll tell you the details coming up.
News 4 Jax starts right now with a breaking news alert.
All right, happening right now in News 4 Jax at 4. We are following that breaking news alert out of St. Johns County, where charges against this man, Vergilio Aguilar Mendez, have been dismissed. Mendez was arrested back in May, accused of resisting an officer with violence and aggravated manslaughter of an officer after a confrontation with Sergeant Michael Kunovich. Sergeant Kunovich collapsed after that incident and later died at the hospital. It was determined that he had an undiagnosed heart condition after the autopsy, which ultimately was the reason for his death. But since he collapsed right after this altercation when he tried to detain Mendez, attorneys for Mendez have been pushing for the charges to be dropped, saying Sergeant Kunovich's death was not his fault. He'd also been found not competent for trial because he's been unable to aid in his own defense since he does not speak English. Now, in the wake of the charges being dismissed today, Sheriff Rob Hardwick had this to say: there have been attempts by some to portray Mendez as a victim and vilify Sergeant Kunovich. I continue to stand behind Sergeant Kunovich's actions on the night of May 19th, 2023. The danger associated with law enforcement is a risk that we assume when we enter this profession. Sergeant Kunovich died a hero protecting the citizens of St. Johns County, and there's nothing more noble than that. Lawyers for Mendez, however, say Officer Kunovich did not have sufficient probable cause to question him and to take him into custody in the first place. Mendez has been in jail now for 8 months in connection with this case. However, even though the charges were dropped, he won't be getting out. Reporter Marilyn Parker has been following this story from the very beginning. She's going to join us on News 4 Jax at 5 and break down why Mendez is still not fully in the clear. A local man is raising some concerns over what they say is officers' aggressive behavior. The Jacksonville Leadership Coalition says that they've tried to open a dialogue with Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters, but nothing has come of it. So they're taking matters into their own hands. Pastor R.L. Gundy says his organization is now putting together a citizens review board. And they're going to take concerns from citizens and then ask the Human Rights Commission, the state attorney, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and even the Justice Department to investigate. For years, organizations have called on the city council to create a citizen review board, but it has never happened.
Sheriff Rutherford, Sheriff Williams, this sheriff has never wanted to have anybody to look at the conduct of their police officers. They always wanted to handle the conduct themselves. But it still would speak volumes to them if they would have an independent law enforcement agency to look at the issues that they're doing and the things they're committing in this city. It just makes sense.
Coming up on News 4 Jax at 5 o'clock, reporter Marilyn Parker is going to let us hear from one local woman who says when she got into a crash back in December, JSO's response left her feeling like she was being looked at as a criminal. In other news, 2 men are charged with vehicular homicide after Florida Highway Patrol troopers say they killed someone during a street race. They say back in June, Clifton Flagler Jr. and Derek Evans were racing down US 17. Flagler Jr. lost control and hit a tree. Troopers say they were going more than 120 miles per hour at the time, and Flagler Jr.'s vehicle was split in two, and an 18-year-old woman died, and Evans left the scene after the crash. A little bit of good news for the developers of the Rise Doro Apartments in downtown Jacksonville. You'll remember the almost complete, brand new complex, multi-million-dollar complex burnt down in January. Now the city's structural engineers say the parking garage at least appears to be structurally sound still. We've also learned
any further matters we can do subsequent to the press conference. There are cases that come into your life that are more causes than they are cases, and this is a perfect example of what a cause actually is. I was humbled and honored to be a part of this, and although it was a short cause, we were only on the case for a couple of weeks. That's the way you want all of them to be. And I can tell you that when want cases to define your career, these are the ones that you really aim and aspire to attempt to work on, and all of the others lead you to this path. And I want to thank several people before I begin with my statements, starting with the Arroyo Law Firm. Vergilio, and he struck me as such a polite, docile young man, really a boy, not very sophisticated in the ways of this world, and the way he had been treated was nothing short of disgusting. I want to thank also elected State Attorney R.J. Larissa for, one, doing the right thing, two, for keeping an open mind, keeping dialogue with us. And I will tell you, from the very beginning of being retained on this case, the first thing we did was open that dialogue with the State Attorney's Office, and they were very receptive to that. And that's not common. It's unusual. And I think that he's a credit to the people he serves. However, I don't have such kind words for the sheriff, Sheriff Hardwick. I think some of the public statements that he's made and the culture that he has created at the St. John's Sheriff's Department are nothing less than shameful. This case is not a case about immigrants. It's affected one immigrant, but it really affected a boy. And Vergilio could be anyone's son, relative, or loved one. And it's not exclusive to the Guatemalan community, but I was especially connected to it because I am a Hispanic lawyer. First and foremost, I am a Hispanic person. And to see my people being treated in such a manner, being profiled, treated as less than human, is nothing short than disgusting. And it's not only limited to Hispanics, it's also limited to any and all minorities, because everyone is unfortunately capable of receiving this type of discrimination, this type of treatment, to the point where it becomes complicit and evil. And I use those words very carefully and very specifically because a lot had to happen for us to get here today. A boy had to be detained against his will. A boy had to be grabbed, thrown to the ground, placed in a chokehold, tased multiple times, corralled like an animal, and then have a police officer who weighs over 200 pounds place their knee on top of his neck. One would think we've come a long way since George Floyd, but as you can see, nothing is further from the truth. These struggles continue. This outrageous conduct continues, and then it's backed up by a culture that starts and ends with the sheriff, specifically in this case, the sheriff of St. John's County, who not only doubled down, but tripled down, and then some, by creating a false narrative that this young man, this essentially a boy who came into this country at the age of 17 years old, somehow failed to follow an officer's instructions And Sheriff Hardwick then goes on to claim that if he had only followed the officer's instructions, their police officer would still be alive. Aside from being proven both medically and through other clear and convincing evidence that nothing could be further from the truth, I would like to one day see Sheriff Hardwick comply with the orders while given to him in ma'am or even Spanish. And I can guarantee you he would not comply. And to say something so outrageous and then make a claim that somehow Vergilio was going to utilize a knife when knowing full well that was an outright lie. Vergilio was covering up his pocket for months because he had money in that pocket. Something that unfortunately is quite too common in many countries where corrupt police officers will take money from its citizens. And this was specifically money that he had worked very hard for. And on top of that, was trying to protect not only himself, but that of his family. I think everyone could be proud of such a young man, and everyone should be ashamed of such a sheriff that would actually go so far as to issue a press conference and claim that violence against police officers is somehow not going to be tolerated by individuals such as Vergilio Aguilar. I think it's nothing less than shameful. As it relates to everything else, I will tell you this. Fortunately, the trial quickly, as quick as possible. We were ready, willing and able to defend him. And not only that, bring out to the public and insist in cameras in the courtroom so that the entire nation and world could see such a shameful act of discrimination being taking place today in time and in this state for which we were all proud to live in and ashamed of such actions. I want to thank everyone, including the Public Defender's Office from St. Johns County, specifically Rosemary Peoples, for the incredible job that they had done prior to us taking over the case, as well as the assistance from the Arroyo Law Firm. I cannot thank all of those folks who assisted us in making this possible and placing us in a position where we're honored and happy and elated for today's results. I'll open it up for questions now, both online and as well as in person. So if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them both either in English or in Spanish.
Hi, Mr. Baez, Wilton Brutus with WRN, Southern NPR station. Did you expect the prosecutors to dismiss this case so quickly?
Yes, and I say that because you want to hold out the thought that people will do the right thing. It's unfortunate that it took getting involved in such a case or 8 months to do it, but the reality is you expect people to do the right thing. Just like Vergilio expected this police officer to do the right thing. And just like Vergilio expected the sheriff to do the right thing, and so on and so forth. At some point, this grave injustice had to stop. And yeah, I fully expected him to do the right thing, yet being prepared for the worst should they have decided not to.
And for folks who may not understand, the prosecutor dropped the case prior to a judge hearing your motion to dismiss it. How common is that? Is it typically you wait for a judge to dismiss the case, or is it common for a prosecutor to drop it prior to a judge hearing?
Well, believe it or not, it's more common for a prosecutor to drop it. And I say that because judges usually don't want to be, don't want to interfere or choose a side with cases. And that's unfortunate because they have the capacity to do that, but yet many times they'll defer that to a jury. We are glad that it didn't have to go that far, and certainly we would have asked the judge to dismiss the charges based on our motion, and that's why we filed it. This was a clear case of racial profiling, as well as a case of outright discrimination, as well as a case where these police officers didn't even care to try and communicate with this young man, and didn't think and really believed that they could get away with it. And look, let's face reality. They're going to get away with it. They're going to still all be employed. There's not going to be any further investigation, especially with a sheriff like that condoning it and endorsing it. And the only thing that could be done, unfortunately, is for when the election comes up for St. John County Sheriff, is to expect more and ask for more.
Before anyone else has a question, you got a chance to speak with Vergilio Aguilar Mendez's father, who is in Guatemala right now. Spoke with mom. We had a mom interpreter here. What was it like speaking to his father, and I guess explain that relationship or that brief relationship that you had with him?
Sure, we've spoken on multiple occasions, but I can tell you this: yes, there is a language barrier, but there's no barrier of the heart, and you could sense it, see it in his eyes, hear it in his voice. You don't have to understand the words. You know, and you know that this man is incredibly grateful. He's hardworking, and he is a father worried about his boy, and probably carries a lot of guilt inside of him that he's not here, he can't protect his child. And there's nothing more terrifying than that, when a father can't protect their son because they're a faraway land for which you do not have access to, neither by means or by ability to be able to be here. And you have to rely on the kindness of strangers to help your son. And that's a difficult thing. And I tell you, I know everyone involved, from the Guatemalan Maya Center, or Royal Law Firm, our law firm, everyone always kept that in mind. You know, everyone always had that in their heart, to treat this family with dignity and respect, and to try and inform them as best as possible. So, you know, this whole incompetency issue and nonsense is just another reflection of all of that you don't treat people this way. No should our system.
Can we have it in Spanish, please? Thank you.
¿Tienen algunas preguntas?
Bueno, lo que acabas de decir en español, por favor.
Repetirlo todo.
Y con la pasión que dijiste.
Bueno, prefiero contestar alguna pregunta si lo tienen.
Okay. ¿Cuáles son los I'll ask you in English. What happened today?
Hoy el fiscal de St. Johns County retiró todos los cargos en contra de Vergilio Aguilar Mendez y básicamente se terminó el caso. Estamos en estos momentos luchando y tratando de sacarlo inmediatamente, y realmente esperamos que él salga pronto. Así que eso es exactamente lo que pasó.
¿Cómo te sientes?
Orgulloso de representar a un niño que realmente es una persona decente, honesto, y no mereces lo que pasó esa noche y cada día que está en la cárcel. Para robar un niño de su libertad es un pecado, y realmente estoy súper triste para este niño, para su familia, y esperamos que por lo mínimo ellos saben hoy que él va a salir pronto.
Si el sheriff entra por la puerta esta, ¿qué le dices? Keep it clean.
Si el sheriff después que lo voto, No, en realidad él tiene que educarse, que nuestra comunidad no somos criminales porque hablamos otro idioma, porque tenemos un color del piel que es diferente de él, de lo que tiene él. Somos humanos y merece respeto y que lo tratan igual a cualquier persona en nuestra comunidad. Y si él no entiende en español, que lo aprendes. Porque Vergilio tiene que aprender el inglés si va a estar aquí, y él por lo mínimo trató de hablar en inglés. El oficial no trató de hablar en español. Él sabía que este niño no hablaba. Obviamente el español, él tiene sus límites, pero realmente te digo, yo hablo con él en español y él me entendió completamente, y yo también a él. Así que nosotros vivimos en un estado que tiene diferentes culturas, si lo gusta o no, no importa. Es la realidad de la situación, y es la realidad de este país, que nadie es de este país, solo las personas que estaban aquí antes. Así que la mayoría de nosotros son inmigrantes, y tiene que entender ese concepto. Y para tratar una comunidad diferente no es justicia y no es justo.
Usted se lo dijo al niño, ¿no? Que estaba libre.
Estamos en ese proceso.
¿Todavía no se lo dijo?
No, todavía Vergilio no lo sabes, pero te prometo que pronto él va a saber.
Última pregunta. ¿Hablaste con el padre?
Sí.
¿Cuál fue su reacción?
Bueno, su reacción él estaba súper feliz, súper contento, y empezó a llorar, y casi hicimos a todos nosotros llorar también por su pasión, su amor para su hijo, él estaba súper contento.
Última pregunta, I promise. What does your heart feel right now?
Un honor que realmente tengo la habilidad para servirme mi comunidad, además mi gente latino. Yo crecí aquí, pero yo nací aquí en los Estados Unidos y me crecí aquí, pero nunca perdí mi cultura, de donde yo vengo, de donde viene mi gente, y estoy súper orgulloso de estar parte de este caso, y te digo que me duele cada vez que veo un latino que lo maltratan la policía, que se abusan de su poder y que lo tiran a la cárcel, y que hay gente en nuestro sistema que da ese tipo de discriminación, que lo apoyan, y confía en mí. En mi trabajo lo critican bastante. Siempre me dicen, ¿cómo tú puedes defender a esa gente? Bueno, fácil, súper fácil, porque cuando tú no tienes un voz y nadie está en su lado, y tú necesitas una persona que peleas por ti, y en realidad eso es un honor, y muy poca gente sabe eso, y gracias a Dios que yo tengo la habilidad y que me da este chance para ayudar a la gente, todas las personas que yo represento.
You've been on big cases, national cases, Casey Anthony and others. How does this compare?
Este caso, bueno, cuando una persona confía en ti y pone su vida en sus manos, es una responsabilidad grande, y es difícil explicar. Cada día que me levanto, yo sé los clientes que tengo que están dependiendo en mí, que están dependiendo en nuestro buffet, y todas las personas que trabajan en los casos. Y no me importa si es un caso de alto perfil, donde todos los medios nacionales están mirando, o si nadie lo está mirando. Porque la realidad, esto es una cuestión, tú no puedes hacer este trabajo bien si no lo tienes en el corazón. Y yo no he perdido eso, gracias a Dios, y el día que lo pierdo, yo me retiro y no practico ley más.
no represento gente más porque ellos están dependiendo no solo en mi habilidad de abogado, pero en mi corazón y mi pasión para el trabajo. Y porque yo creo que eso es lo que me motiva todos los días y toda esta gente también. Y no tiene que ser abogados, es luchando para la justicia, que es una cosa de que te ayudas y te da poder para seguir adelante y luchar por gente porque te necesitan.
Gracias.
Any questions online or anything?
I have one more question.
Thanks.
Okay. Just so people can understand about the process a little bit more, why do you think it was of the benefit of the prosecutor to drop the case after months of Vergilio Aguilar Mendez being locked up in County County Jail? What went through his mind to, okay, let me just agree with you to drop this case?
I think they took an objective approach to the case and they realized they couldn't prove it and that these charges are not sustainable, that these charges and the facts don't add up and the evidence is contrary to the facts that were initially thrown out there. So, you know, look, I think it's drop the charges now, or we're going to file a speedy demand, and we'll insist on cameras in the courtroom, and we will bring this case in front of the world. I can tell you, we had numerous. I reached out to numerous individuals, not only in the national media, but also in entertainment. This was going to be a big case. I had, and I want to thank them as well. Scott Budnick, who is a social justice champion, and as well as Kim Kardashian, also assisted us and posted on this case, and all of the other folks that we were prepared to utilize and ask to get involved. This was going to be a community effort, a national effort, and I was going to bang that drum as loud as I possibly could. This is not, many cases that I get involved in, I realize, okay, less media is more. That was not going to be the case here. We were going to ensure that the world was watching. And I think this prosecutor took an objective look at the evidence and realized we don't want to be in that situation. And I would have found a way, believe me, even though he wasn't at the scene or the arresting officer, but I would have found a way to get the sheriff on the stand. And it would not have been pretty, as well as those who actually participated in this grave injustice. Anything online, any questions that you want to throw? No? Facebook or?
Everyone's saying, thank you.
Oh, no, thank all of you, everyone for their prayers, their support, everyone who signed the petition, the online petition, everyone who has supported this organization, the Guatemalan Mayan Center. Please take a look there. Go to their website, donate to their cause, because these are good people doing God's work. And I can tell you that everyone here, their heart is in the right place, and they're willing to put their blood, sweat, and tears into helping people. So please help in any way you can. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if I can ask a question, but I'd like to. Only because I teach.
Who's telling you you can?
Only because I teach government to high school students, and I always talk to them about having a sense of political efficacy. And it doesn't matter how young they are. It doesn't matter whether or not they're considered a part of the American dream. They can. So I'd like to recognize the person, Mari, the influencer, who started this in many ways, started making it public way before Kim Kardashian. Who is that young man? Because he said, look at this, and it was from their own community, right? And I think that is so powerful, that within the immigrant community itself, we're not going to put up with this. Do you know the name of that person?
Carlos Espina, TikToker, Carlos Espina.
Right. But
Is he local?
By the way, tell him that he never returned my message.
He's probably watching, Carlos, you heard?
Right, but it's like the people, if you think that Olga, like the struggles of Olga, like I've known Olga for 20 years, and to see that Olga now, she's a powerful force in the community, right? So yes, obviously you need the lawyers and you need the Father Franks and the Mari Blancos. But you need the people. You need these people. You need the Micas and the Morenas and the Olgas to say, we're not going to put up with this. We're part of this American dream. We're essential workers in Florida. This is an agricultural economy. We're essential workers. We're not going to put up with being treated as less than, not by the governor, not by sheriffs. Right? We belong here.
It's imperative that everyone has a voice. And we should never attempt to curtail that or step on that in any way, shape, or form, because you never know who's going to come forward with the right cause, the right idea, the right concept, and something that can make this world a better place. And I think everyone here has done that in this cause, and I thank you as well for allowing me to be part of it. Thank you, really.
Another question. Some people online are asking what's next for Vergilio.
Well, my understanding is first of all, he currently has an immigration hold. We're in the process of filing a motion to withdraw that hold in the event that that it doesn't get heard before. They have 48 hours to detain him for an immigration hold. I do not believe that's going to happen because this is an outright dismissal. On top of that, Vergilio was out waiting to actually attend a court hearing for immigration court. He hasn't missed any court dates, so there's absolutely no reason for them to keep him or to detain him in any way, shape, or form. He's not a danger to the community. And subsequent to that, I believe the Guatemalan Mayan Center is going to come with us, pick him up, give him a place to stay, provide him with some food and clothing, and hopefully get him started so we can see what happens next in his life. And I think we're all going to be a part of that and to contribute and utilize our contacts, resources in any way we can to, I don't want to use the word compensate, but to help make things right for him. And that's the goal here. No one is trying to take advantage of any situation. The reality is that this boy was not looking for a handout. Personally, as a person, and hopefully reunite him with his family really soon.
Now that you mentioned compensation, how does this work? He's been in there since last.
Well, unfortunately, when it comes to compensation in the state of Florida, there's a thing called governmental immunity, and there are extremely very low limits as it relates to recovering. Everyone thinks, oh boy, he's going to be bringing in, cashing in millions. That nothing could be further from the truth. These types of cases are incredibly difficult to prosecute, to prove, and to file lawsuits on. It's not an uphill battle. It's climbing Mount Everest. So for those of you who think that he's gonna be fine, he's gonna make millions, no, nothing could be further from that. And he's, for those types of cases, they're rare, but usually they involve some type of death and a high amount of evidence, usually video evidence, and none of that really exists in this case. He doesn't have permanent injuries. There might be some psychological damage, and hopefully we'll get him some help for that, but this is not the financial windfall that many people probably think.
Which makes what?
It makes it sadder too, because most people think, okay, well, if you're wronged, the government will do what's right, and that's unfortunately not the case here, and it's not the state of the law. So that's why the abuse, the discrimination, and the profiling has to stop, because there is no recourse, as most people think, and I don't know, there's no way. Well, I know that there's no way Vergilio will say, I'm glad this experience happened, or in somehow I benefited or learned from it. I'm sure he'll learn from it in some way, but it's by no way beneficial to him. So for that reason, we have to stop it at its inception, which is making sure that law enforcement does not detain individuals unjustly and by way of utilizing discrimination. Thank you all for